Hello everyone. This is your friend from Naruto Audio Fanfics, and we are back once again with a brand new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto lost his sight when the Nine-Tails seal broke and inherited a dark power, Naruto times Anko Mitarashi, Part 2. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to hit the like button, thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel for more amazing Naruto fanfics like this. So without wasting any more time, let's start today's fanfic. 3 years passed since the discovery of Naruto's skills, and Sarutobi Hiruzen was, in his office, reading what appeared to be the 100th complaint made by the local population as well as some ninjas who were 100% sure of his grandson's acts of cruelty. The man knew better, though, than to believe in such biased opinions of the actual truth of what happened each time that his grandson ended up being involved. He knew Naruto to be the wielder of Maiden, Dark Release, but in no circumstances would the blonde start any direct confrontation against either civilians or shinobi. In fact, he even remembered watching in his crystal ball one day when a couple of genin decided to use his grandson as target practice, throwing deadly projectiles at him from a short distance. At the time, Sarutobi was impressed with the blonde's speed and ability to hear the weapon's trajectory, thus dodging them all with efficiency. The only problem was that after dodging all the incoming weapons, instead of only being in the defensive, the blonde did some hand seals for his technique, which the Hokage came to know as Maiden Kurosenbon, Dark Release, Black Needles Jutsu. The 3 genin were immediately admitted to the hospital and were off duty for at least a week until the last needle was removed. Besides that, Sarutobi remembered a middle-aged woman screaming to the heavens when she saw one of the blonde's skeleton bunchen entering her store in order to buy some groceries. Hiruzen, later, learned that the same woman treated the blonde badly, refusing to sell anything to him, in hopes that the demon would die from hunger. Besides that, the blonde was having pretty much a normal life, well as normal as it could be in his situation. With his family, you just couldn't tell Naruto was angry, since the blonde enjoyed spending time with them, especially his little brother Konohamaru. However, the majority of the population and few shinobi were against any sort of contact with the boy, and even though Sarutobi issued a law forbidding from saying out loud, they continued on their quest to influence their offspring in order to avoid the demon, as everyone calls him. It only got worse, though, as Naruto's dark chakra became public knowledge, which helped to fuel the ignorant majority's opinion that the boy was the demon fox reincarnated and wouldn't take long to cause havoc throughout the village. Nevertheless, with his grandson's graduation date approaching, Hiruzen was hopeful that whoever it's assigned to take care of his training can hopefully mold his character as he goes through the shinobi life's tribulations. With Naruto . It was already time to leave for the academy, as the blonde left the Sarutobi mansion before heading towards his last day as an academy student. With 12 years old, the blonde made some adjustments to his outfit, not that it mattered much since he was blind, but he knew his mother loved shopping for him, so he used it to make her happy. It composed of army black boots, black Anbu stylized pants and a light blue clean shirt. His grandfather, also, gave him the same gray arm protectors he used, which Naruto greatly appreciated at the time, which was now incorporated in his wardrobe, although instead of gray, the blonde's arm protector was black to match with the pants and boots. Hiruzen also gave him some sunglasses in order to hide his lifeless eyes, but this time, the blonde, although accepting the gift, never wore them. It wasn't necessary in his opinion. As he walked calmly towards the academy, he could feel the looks people gave him as well as what each of them felt. He couldn't help but smile at this, though. Although they all knew the difference between the demon and the blonde, they, instead, choose to vent their frustrations on him, instead of dealing with their pains of the past. Why they would bother, though, he wondered. It was easier, wasn't it, to blame him for what happened, instead of respecting the wishes of the dead and moving on with their lives. This way, at least according to the blonde, it would be all part of their vengeance against the demon's past transgressions. To this day, the future genin wondered if the population's thought was to kill him in hopes of killing the beast residing inside of him, thus fulfilling a lost sense of revenge. Too bad they didn't try, though. However, Naruto's train of thought was stopped short, as he saw 2 genin in front of him with a not-so-friendly look on their faces. Can I help you too? I don't know much I can do, being blind and all, but, Naruto asked, completely amused in how he could taunt these 2 into showing their hatred towards the Kyuubi. True to Naruto's pretension, the two genin, who appeared to be twins, started snarling at the blonde, not at all knowing that the only objective being accomplished was making Naruto's chakra stronger. Okasan warned us not to kill you, but you deserve to die for what you did to our father, you demon piece of shit, shouted one of them, earning laughter from the blonde. Man, it's one ignorant fool after another. How many times do I have to spell it out for you all? Kyuubi. Geez, I thought you all knew by now. The twin genin, without a word, charged Naruto with the intention of doing the same thing Kyuubi did to their father, but before they could do another step, Naruto did a sequence of forehand seals, before slamming his hands on the ground. Maiden Jongu, Dark Release. Dark Tendrils Jutsu. From the ground, appeared innumerous dark tendrils which grabbed the twins from various places before it began to squeeze each limb, threatening to draw blood at any moment. Now, the genin, anger, though, didn't subside as they glared daggers at the blonde for what he did to them. However, the tendrils seemed to squeeze their limbs even tighter, as Naruto continued walking towards the academy, but he stopped after a couple of steps forward, before turning to see the genin screaming in pain as the tendrils were drawing blood from their limbs. This technique is special and it won't dissipate until both of you manages to cool down your anger. The tendrils feeds themselves on negative emotions, and as long as you two continue to glare daggers at me, the tendrils will squeeze tighter, until either you die from the loss of blood or fall unconscious due to the lack of oxygen. I actually prefer the latter, but the former will occur if you don't take my advice soon. Whatever you do, though, it's up to you two, Naruto explained as he placed his hands inside his pockets and continued his way towards the academy. The people around, though, snarled at what the blonde did, even though they all knew who started the whole thing. Eventually, the Anbus who saw the whole thing cut off the tendrils, before arresting them for not only violating the third Hokage's law, but also from attempting a deliberate attack at an academy student. If it was one special group that sympathized with Naruto's cause was the Anbu Shinobi and Kunoichi. They all knew what the blonde goes through every day and the attempts on his life, even if so far, no one posed much of a threat to the blonde because of his skills. One with the hawk mask even remembered when the blind kid just knocked the shit out of a fresh out of the academy genin when he was about 10 years old. Hey, why are you arresting these two? They didn't do anything wrong, it was that brat that trapped them with his tendrils. The group of Anbus that were taking away the two prisoners stopped, and the one with the hawk mask addressed the man with a stoic demeanor, befitting of a respected shinobi of his position. I saw the entire situation, sir, and from what I saw, Naruto, the brat as you so call him, tried talking these two out of it first, but they didn't listen and charged instead. His act was purely in self-defense. Now carry on with your affairs. Instantly, the Anbu party left with the two prisoners towards the Anbu HQ, where all the prisoners were being held for questioning, regarding their past transgressions towards Sarutobi Naruto. Back to the blonde in question, he managed to see the entire situation unfold with his chakra no Myaku technique and smiled at both the Anbu's response and the man's indignation to his attacker's arrest. As he continued walking towards the academy, the blonde considered casting one genjutsu he managed to create with the use of dark chakra, but he considered against it in the end. This technique was reserved for tougher opponents than mere genin who just couldn't see past their blinding hatred for the Kyuubi inside of his stomach. Little did the blonde know, though, that the fox enjoyed every moment of what happened. At the academy . As he arrived at his classroom, he took a seat next to Shikamaru, who happened to be seconds away from drifting to sleep from the troublesome situation of being awake. However, his demeanor changed once the blonde took a seat and resumed to stare at the blackboard in front of them. Shikamaru was smart. Damn smart for his age, so he could draw conclusions much faster than any student his age, even a few genin. However, the only person he couldn't understand was Sarutobi Naruto. When they started the academy together, the blonde carried a cheerful demeanor, even though he knew the blonde to be blind, since he was born. As the years passed, though, and when the Nara heir was about to fully understand the guy, something happens and the blonde goes through a sudden change in behavior, being instead more collected. Shikamaru could as well feel a strange aura around the boy that unnerved him, up to the point that he asked his parents about it, however he frowned at the time, upon receiving only vague answers. Shikamaru remembered how everyone advised him not to get close to the blonde, but he paid it no mind, especially because it would be so damn troublesome to worry about it. But the fact remained that Sarutobi Naruto will be forever an enigma in his opinion. Plus the fact that Naruto managed to overcome his blindness by using chakra spiked his curiosity. Oi Naruto, what are your thoughts on the test? The blonde turned his attention to Shikamaru, even though it wouldn't make much of a difference, seeing as he was blind, but it was a habit he got familiarized with after some time. Shikamaru was only one who talked to him at the academy, since the rest avoided him, and Shino, although different than the others, was too caught up on his own world to give attention to Naruto. Probably a bit of everything we learned throughout the last year: written test, taijutsu, weapon accuracy, and ninjutsu. I'd think that genjutsu would be as well, but I hear my father telling that illusions are a lost art these days. Actually, I'm not thinking much about the test, but rather what will happen after our graduation. Quote. It's common knowledge that after we graduate, we'll be divided into 3-man units under the authority of a Junin sensei. However, to me at least, the majority of this classroom avoids even eye contact with me, and the ones who know I exist, you and Shino, will probably be in other teams. Imagine being stuck with either Sakura or Ino at the same team. Shikamaru immediately gulped at the thought. Every time Shikamaru tried to sleep, it was their constant bickering that managed to awake him. Now that he remembered, his father always told about his team and how they grew up to be legends, known as the Ino Shikacho team. It's troublesome, but I believe I already know who my team would be. Me, Ino and Choji are the second generation of the Ino Shikacho team, and certainly the Hokage wouldn't miss the opportunity to assemble the same team. Man, what a drag, Shikamaru complained. As soon as Shika finished his train of thought, both Iruka and Mizuki entered the classroom, and as usual, Mizuki glared at Naruto, who only smiled at the sudden feeling he always got when people feel negative emotions close to him. A light class. Today is the final test of the academy, and as such, it's the last shot for those who are in need of improving their grades, right? Shikamaru. The Nara heir only sighed, before explaining it was troublesome to pay attention and study. Iruka snorted and began speaking once more. The test will compose of 3 parts: a written test, basic taijutsu against one another, and performing one ninjutsu of our choosing. The written part will be given by Mizuki here, following by the taijutsu part, which I will proctor, followed by the ninjutsu program that both of us will oversee. Naruto heard everything and frowned in suspicion. Ever since Mizuki first started teaching, he tried time and time again to force the blonde to fail, and even though Naruto managed to pinpoint the fraud, he could always complain to Iruka and he would change the test immediately. Now that Mizuki is the one doing the written test alone, nothing would stop him from failing Naruto by either applying a harder test or throwing away his test afterwards, saying he didn't write anything. His feeling of suspicion only increased as Naruto took notice of the man's evil smirk. Suddenly, the blonde's mind began processing his options. His grades throughout the academy placed him as second best only after Uchiha Sasuke, but by failing in this test, his grades may not be enough to graduate, even if he excels at the rest of the test. He needed to do something about the test, or else Mizuki would accomplish his goal. He couldn't think of any way out, as Mizuki was distributing the tests to the students, until he reached Naruto's place. The test he gave Naruto was nothing out of the ordinary, the blonde concluded. No genjutsu altering the test's questions, no questions that were ahead of their current level. So, probably Mizuki would simply try to get rid of his test after the blonde handed it to him. Suddenly, an idea just clicked in his mind. It was perfect. Mizuki would be blinded by rage upon seeing Naruto's test, but when the blonde handed it in and Mizuki saw that not a word was written, he wouldn't do anything and just place it in the pile. Of course, Naruto knew of a simple genjutsu that could make his answer disappear, and when Mizuki placed his exam in the pile, the blonde would dissolve the genjutsu and the answers would show. The only thing that Naruto was supposed to do was to appear frightened by these easy questions, before handing the test to Mizuki. As the time passed, the man in question was paying attention to the entire classroom to see if anyone was cheating. But it was only a facade, since he not once lost focus on the demon brat, and the fact that the blonde seemed to be struggling to answer the questions as effective as it should be, much to his fascination at the thought of Naruto not even graduating, thus having to stay one more year with them. Mizuki was smiling at the prospect of deliberately failing the blonde every time until he either drops the academy or is asked to drop the program for good. There are some kids that no matter how skilled they are, their grades was never to acceptable standards that Konoha would give them a hit I-8, so instead, this student would be given another opportunity to join other curriculums such as Fire Capital's Samurai program. As the students delivered their papers to Mizuki, he was smiling at how emptier the class now was, leaving only Naruto and a few other dropouts to finish the test. If possible, the look on happiness in Mizuki's face was too much for him to fully conceal, and the blonde in question was inside, smirking with all his might at the level of deception he was using against his teacher. A few minutes, the blonde, on the outside, let out a heavy sigh in dismay, but inside, he quickly focused the necessary chakra for the genjutsu, before handling the test for the smirking Chunin instructor. Mizuki, after seeing the blonde leave the classroom, checked the boy's test, only to smile since Naruto didn't answer a single question. He didn't even bother trying to alter the test and smiled at himself for just failing the demon brat outright. He, then, grabbed the pile of tests and went to the academy's archive, before placing the tests inside, not even a little bit aware that Naruto's test was slowly being written as if a ghost was answering the questions for him. In little to no time, the test was fully written and the genjutsu was dispelled. Academy's training ground Yumi no Iruka was looking at his watch for the beginning of the second phase of the academy test, and the students slowly appeared and made a line in front of him. His watch suddenly showed the time was up, but one student remained missing. However, just as he was about to address the students in front of him, he caught glimpse of Naruto approaching, before completing the line next to Shikamaru. The Nara heir, for his part, kept looking at the blonde next to him with a frown on his face in contemplation. That written test was a piece of cake in his consideration, and surely, Naruto would ace it, no questions asked. However, the blonde appeared frightened in the middle of the test, almost as if he was struggling to answer what appeared to be the easiest test of their academy years. However, Shikamaru wasn't fooled easily, which was a trait that would make him famous in the future, and he knew that something was wrong about all this. The blonde's grades were second only to the Uchiha prodigy, and being a part of the Sarutobi clan, Shikamaru was certain that the Sandaime Hokage was one of, if not the best teacher on any given subject relating the shinobi world. It got even worse as he saw Naruto's grin perfectly shown on his face, like the blonde just went through a breakthrough in life. His musings were cut short, though, as Iruka was telling about the second phase of the exam. I hope that everyone managed to do well on the exams, but just so you know, for those who are not feeling so confident, this whole test is not determined by one skill alone. You will all be evaluated for your performances in all three parts of the test, so if you felt like you could have done better at the written exam, try harder in the taijutsu and ninjutsu portion of the test and you'll manage to graduate no problem. Now, I'll be calling on names, and as I said before, I'll be selecting pairs for a bull taijutsu showdown. Now mind you that winning the match won't be necessary, but you'll receive grades for strike accuracy, defensive maneuvers and the style's correct stances. Okay, first group is Ichigo against Kiba. You two please start on my mark. Okay, go. Naruto was watching as all of his classmates got into their respective matches. Kiba, although rash and annoying with that big mouth of his, didn't have any problem against his opponent as he finished the battle with a couple of well-delivered punches to Ichigo's chest, before landing a reverse kick on his face, sending the poor boy to the ground, instantly. Shino was next, and Naruto actually respected the bug user's skills in taijutsu, even though he knew the brown-haired boy's skills favored his hidden Kikaichu bugs. Shino would analyze the opponent for a good while, before said opponent charged at him, rather reckless, before receiving a strong punch on his nose, thus falling on the ground with a thud. Next was Shikamaru against Sasuke, and although Shikamaru was by no means a taijutsu specialist, he managed to hold his ground for a couple of minutes, until Sasuke managed to deliver a finishing blow to his sternum. Later, Naruto came to hear from Shika that was too troublesome to continue a fight he wasn't even supposed to win, which earned a full-out grin from the blonde. The blonde, then, got to see why the style known as the Jiyuken, gentle fist, particular to the Hyuga clan, was so famous and equally reliable, as he saw Hyuga Hinata strike her opponent with downright efficiency, while maintaining a decent fluidity that was particular to this style of fighting. Of course, she didn't close any tenketsu since this happens to use chakra for it, but it was impressive in Naruto's opinion. Naruto's fight was one of the last as he went against a dropout student by the name of Masaburo. For all the blonde knew, This rather bulky kid failed to graduate from the academy last year and had to repeat due to his inability to pass the written test in the ninjutsu portion. As they positioned in front of the other, Masaburo was actually smirking with quite intensity as he got a blind kid to test himself against. No doubt, in Naruto's mind, Masaburo was thinking how he would beat the blonde to the ground and score some nice points to compensate for his bad ninjutsu skills. However, Naruto didn't intend to give the boy in front of him a chance to strike at all. The Surukan monkey fist was known for its agility and versatility in the lines of battle, and Naruto managed to come a long way under his father's guidance along the years. Masaburo, after Iruka's consent, charged at Naruto from the front as he aimed a punch on Naruto's face. The blonde waited until the last possible second to move his body with excellent fluidity as expected from the monkey fist style, thus taking his face away from the impact, but before Masaburo couldn't even move to retaliate, Naruto started dancing with his feet, before positioning the furthest feet behind the right one, thus landing a light kick at his opponent's leg. The strength wasn't an issue here, but making him lose his balance was, before Naruto flipped his body and landed a surprise punch on his opponent's chest, using his body movements to better increase the power of the punch. His opponent was on the ground, instantly, and he could very well get up despite the pain of Naruto's attack. However, he was downright shocked that a blind kid just managed to do that and he didn't even see the first leg swoop from below. Iruka sighed, since he knew that this kid was hoping to score high on the taijutsu portion, but he came to know that if anyone were to fight against Naruto, he or she would have to be aware of his dance-like movements and stances. Even though he didn't know much about the Sarutobi clan's fighting style, he knew that no one could attack recklessly like Masaburo did, or else like it happened now, Naruto landed some hidden attacks courtesy of a monkey that took his opponent by surprise. Alright class, this portion of the test is now complete as I got your scores right here. I know some of you would like to hear them right now, but I ain't giving you the satisfaction. Now, everyone, let's get back to the classroom for the ninjutsu portion of the exam, which by the way, it's the last part and also the last chance for you to show that you are genin material in Konoha's eyes. Follow me please. At the classroom . Once back at the class, both Iruka and Mizuki now stood in front of the class as Iruka addressed the class. As I said, this is the ninjutsu portion of the exam, so each one of you will be called at the classroom next to this one by alphabetic order. Once inside, you'll be asked to do all three of the jutsus learned so far, the Bunshin, Kawarimi and Henge no Jutsu. Okay. First on the list is Aburame Shino, please come with us. The rest of you wait until your name is called by Mizuki-sensei here, okay. The blonde waited for what appeared to be a long time since, because of his last name, he was one of the last, but before the Uchiha. The blonde was remembering how easy it was to cast the Kawarimi and Henge, however the Bunshin no Jutsu wasn't like the others. The blonde knew, from his family, that his chakra reserves were off the charts, meaning techniques that require a small amount of chakra were hard on the blonde. Eventually, though, he managed the technique, but not until Tanbo-sensei taught those advanced chakra control exercises, which in fact, were obligatory if Naruto wanted to use chakra in order to see to its fullest. His musings were cut short as Mizuki entered the class, calling his name, with a voice that carried as much disdain as possible, but the only one who caught on was Naruto himself, especially because it was directed at him in the first place and Mizuki kind of wanted the blonde to hear that. A few minutes later, Naruto was leaving the school with a smile on his face as he remembered the pissed-off look of Mizuki once he aced the ninjutsu portion of the exam. Naruto would have been wrong, but he actually thought that Mizuki was counting on his abnormal chakra reserves to fail in producing the 3 needed copies for him to pass the exam. Now, he opened the door for the Sarutobi compound as his chakra-like vision caught a great number of the clan members training together with the bow staff, which made Naruto smile as he went to his house. The bow staff, although a fantastic weapon in Naruto's opinion, would never serve him. His opinion came after testing with the stick once or twice. His grandfather explained to him that the bow staff required 2 steps. 1, the user would have to pay attention at all his enemies instead of one at a time, and 2, the user's fluidity. Hiruzen, although impressed with Naruto's first usage, could see that the boy's body wasn't adequate for the style, from being too stiff in his movements. Naruto could compensate in his taijutsu style, but the bow staff required more. However, Hiruzen, with his amazing skills in teaching, managed to saw a fitting weapon for his grandson. The Nodashi, although not commonly used because of its size compared to the normal wakizashi and kodashi, would prove adequate for Naruto in the long run. As a clan, the Sarutobi possessed a considerable weapon inventory and so happens to have one Nodashi that Hiruzen meant to give Naruto in the future. It belonged to Hiruzen's grandfather Sarutobi Azaki and its design was fairly simple, black hilt, black hoister. That sword was responsible for Azaki's many accomplishments by the Shadaime and Nadaime Hokage's side at the time and certainly, Naruto would use it well. At the Hokage's office . Stuffing some tobacco inside his pipe, Hiruzen was addressing the two academy teacher in front of him for Konoha's next generation of ninjas. It so happens that this one was special to Hiruzen, since his grandson would finally graduate and become a ninja. Okay. Then Iruka-kun, can you give your report? Iruka nodded, before grabbing a scroll with the grades. Mizuki was sure Naruto didn't pass, because of the written test, but he couldn't say 100%, because Iruka managed to convince him that it was no big deal to process the evaluation alone, but Mizuki couldn't find a proper argument other than, I want to screw the demon brat. So he ended up complying, rather confident that Naruto would fail, even though the damn annoyance managed to ace the ninjutsu portion of the exam. Certainly Hokage-sama, Iruka started. Not much of a surprise here, but Uchiha Sasuke is the rookie of the year with perfect scores Hokage-sama. Your grandson was second best, only falling behind Sasuke at the written text. What? But, Mizuki couldn't believe his ears. Iruka said that Naruto was second best at the written text. That was impossible. The blonde didn't write a damn thing on the test. Nonetheless, Iruka wouldn't simply play favorites for the blonde, considering Iruka's parents getting killed. Mizuki knew Iruka to be a fair teacher, despite it all that happened, but he couldn't help but wonder what happened. His eyes couldn't possibly fool him so easily. He saw that the blonde's test was empty. Mizuki suddenly remembered that Naruto was carrying a huge grin on his face at the ninjutsu portion of the exam, and certainly if the blonde knew he failed at the written exam, he wouldn't be that confident. Could it be that the damn brat fooled me with a genjutsu? What is it, Mizuki? Do you have anything to add? The sudden attention was unwanted and now Mizuki was being eyed with suspicion by the Hokage, which of course, wasn't what he wanted. Sorry Iruka, it's nothing. I just thought that with Naruto's grades up to this point, then he would be the rookie of the year, but Sasuke got that position. The answer was accepted by Iruka, who continued to list the names of the students that passed, but the Hokage was now wary of the gray-haired Chunin. He remembered his grandson telling that he didn't trust Mizuki and even told that he sometimes tried to deliberately fail the blonde several times by giving him a harder test than the others. It didn't improve his mood as Sarutobi could sense the smell of snake coming from Mizuki, but he shrugged it off in favor of focusing on Iruka as he finished the list of graduates. I see, so all the clan heirs passed along with a few others. I trust that you Iruka already assembled the suitable genin teams, right? Sarutobi asked. Iruka nodded and handed a sheet for the Hokage to read the team assembles. It was the man's smile that filled Iruka's pride, before Sarutobi gave the sheet back to Iruka. Great job on the teams Iruka, I concur with your assessment. Please tomorrow hand in the Hitai Atesh for those who passed and inform them the teams that will be formed along with their senseis. Iruka and Mizuki bowed in respect, before leaving the room. However, Hiruzen now remembered the scent he got from Mizuki and frowned a bit. Although he sensed that smell in a Tokubetsu Junin by the name of Mitarashi Anko, Mizuki didn't use snakes in his arsenal, so something must be off. Sarutobi decided to investigate this matter with care. Now, however, he had other things to worry about as the sudden pile of reports was getting bigger by the second. Now remembering his grandson's genin team, he couldn't help but smile, seeing as it was indeed a nice assemble of talents under a talented Junin. At the academy, the next day The next day, students were in their seats, as they awaited for both Iruka and Mizuki sensei to arrive. Some were anxious and even terrified of the results, while others were confident of their skills that they would leave the school with a Hitai 8. The clan heirs, though, didn't even worry about the results. Each of them knew how their test went and nothing would keep them from graduating the academy. Some were throwing away some conversation about the test. Ino and Sakura, as usual, were talking about Sasuke's performance against the Nara heir, much to said boy's annoyance, since he actually dreamed of at least 1 minute of silence from these two banshees. Shikamaru, also as usual, was sleeping next to a stoic Naruto. The blonde, for instance, didn't have much to think about, other than waiting for the teacher to arrive with the test results. The blonde wasn't sure if his plan had worked, though. He managed to see Mizuki's reaction once he delivered the test, which was happiness that Naruto apparently didn't answer any of the questions, but Naruto wouldn't be able to know if the genjutsu stayed long enough for Mizuki to put his test together with the pile of tests and never see it again. Naruto always considered the worst possible scenario, so it wasn't much of a shock to him that he was already preparing for the worst, which would mean resorting to show how Mizuki always tried to stop Naruto from graduating, although this of course wouldn't stick in the courtroom. He had no proof of said statement. Suddenly, both Iruka and Mizuki-sensei arrived with a considerable suitcase, before placing on top of the teacher's desk. It was that instant that Naruto had the decency to smile after seeing Mizuki's frown. Of course, if Naruto had indeed failed, then the man's smirk would range from ear to ear and he would deliver the news personally to the blonde. Inside this case are 30 hitai atesh for the graduates of this year. Now, before I give the results, I want you all to know that if you fail to qualify for Genin, that doesn't mean you should quit or anything even remotely close to quitting. Trust me, the ninja world is full of hardships and only those who withstand the pain and move on will have what it takes to raise in rank. Now, first of all, I want to congratulate two distinguishing students that excelled during the academy. These two were material for Rookie of the Year, but it took only one small difference at the written exam. Please come take your hitai atesh, Rookie of the Year, Sasuke Uchiha and close second Sarutobi Naruto. Instantly, the entire classroom went in uproar as the Uchiha was quite famous both from the girls' side, fangirls, and the boys' side, regarding his last name. However, while Uchiha Sasuke's performance was admirable, certainly Naruto's was as well, considering his eye disability to read and write as proper. Nevertheless, Naruto wasn't at all surprised that the cheers didn't go to him at all, but rather the famous Uchiha instead. It didn't matter that he wasn't Rookie of the Year, it mattered that he graduated. Uchiha Sasuke, though, didn't accept the fact that Naruto was so close to beating him at the academy. He knew Naruto to be blind, since those eyes of his were very unnerving to said Uchiha. It reminded of his brother, devoted of emotion, like a killing machine. However, something clicked in Sasuke's mind about an academy student close to his level. Sasuke was an avenger and he was constantly measuring himself against the other shinobi from time to time. If Sarutobi could be his rival, then Sasuke's own skills would surely progress. A few minutes later, Iruka closed the suitcase and addressed for those who didn't pass, to try harder next year, before he started the second part of his speech. Now, first of all I want to congratulate all those who passed the academy and say I'm very proud of each and every one of you now genin. However, this happens to be just a tip of the iceberg when it comes to being a shinobi. Many hardships will certainly appear in your path as each one of you ascends the shinobi ranks. I'm certain, though, that whatever it is, every one of you is ready for what is to come. As some of you know and some of you don't, once you graduate, you're divided into 3-man teams under the leadership of a Junin. That being said and the fact that 30 of you graduated, were able to form 10 teams which is both in the Hokage's belief, that will be adequate. Iruka took a moment for the genin to digest the notion that they would be paired as they immediately looked at each other in question. Certainly everyone started thinking about who they wanted to be paired with and certainly, to Kunoichi imagined how nice it would be to be paired with Sasuke, until Iruka started saying the groups. Okay. Then here is the list, so be quiet and pay attention. Team 1. Team 2. Team 7. Haruno Sakura, Uchiha Sasuke, Inuzuka Kiba, Junin Sensei Hatake Kakashi. As Iruka was about to continue, he was interrupted as Sakura started screaming to the heavens for answering her praise, allowing her to rub on Yamanaka Ino's loser face. The scarred teacher frowned at the fangirlism, before continuing with the announcement. Okay. Now Team 8. Aburame Shino, Hyuga Hinata, Sarutobi Naruto, Junin Sensei Yuahi Kurenai. Team 9 is already operation, so I'll skip to Team 10. Yamanaka Ino, Akamichi Choji, Nara Shikamaru, Junin Sensei Sarutobi Asuma. Tomorrow you'll be meeting your respective senseis in here, at 10 o'clock. Now, since this is the last time you'll see me as your teacher, I just wanted to say that I'm proud of being your teacher and hope you'll do me proud throughout the years. Dismissed. The team arrangement was okay, Naruto supposed. He had two of the strongest genin from his academy and both possessed useful bloodlines that could work wonders in battle. Not to mention the blonde sensei Yuahi Kurenai. The name was alien to the blonde. He supposed he couldn't make any assumptions on the woman's skills and what she could help him improve. At night When the moon appeared in the sky, the village population was at its blissful ignorance as they chatted with friends, family, boyfriend or girlfriend. Even the shinobi population, who should at least be wary inside the village for its protection, but with a moon so beautiful and bright, those that stood behind the gates chose, instead, to get drunk at the many bars that surrounded the business district. However, one shinobi was carrying a mission for his master, hence why he couldn't relax right now. Tsuji Mizuki was by all means a greedy individual, and for him to accept this assignment meant very little regarding the man's loyalty to the hidden village in the leaves. As he ran throughout the rooftops, the Hokage's administration building appeared on the horizon as well as the objective. Mizuki knew that it was a risky move. After all, stealing one of Konoha's most guarded secrets would certainly label him as a missing nin instantly, that if the Anbu doesn't catch him before he manages to escape. Nevertheless, only great reward can a risk be considered, and Mizuki's master promised him power, lots of it. Right now, he was looking at the window that would grant him entrance to the Hokage's personal library of scrolls located at the last floor of the building. After he got in, he immediately and stealthy proceeded through the place, which map Mizuki pretty much memorized. Even the occasional Chunin guard that would guard the floor, the future rogue ninja knew about as he fired a Senbon embedded with paralyzing poison at the man's neck, before watching in fascination as the Chunin began its descent towards the ground. Quickly managing to avoid the man from falling and making any noise, Mizuki eventually found the door that led to his target, before he grabbed a scroll that detailed Sarutobi Hiruzen's personal signature, courtesy of his master's cunningness. After opening, though, surprise struck him, before his greedy behavior took over. Thousands and thousands of scrolls stood in front of him, containing jutsu from every element possible. However, he managed to control his urges in order to locate the scroll he was looking for. Konoha's Kinjutsu Scroll. A thorough list of forbidden jutsu that were considered by the Hokages as forbidden for a number of reasons, whether being the destructive force, the damage to the user's body, or the necessary chakra consumption. He looked for a while, before the scroll he was looking for was found. It was quite thick, Mizuki wondered, as the scroll must have tons of jutsus capable of leveling an entire village. Quickly securing the scroll by strapping it on his waist, Mizuki then proceeded for the toughest part of the mission, fleeing Konoha and meeting with his master a couple miles away from the village. Right now, the man was jumping through rooftops in a fast pace. Eventually, the man managed to enter one of the many forests that surrounded the village with a smile on his face, since hiding inside the forest was rather easy and he wouldn't be detected. As he proceeded through the foliage, he was able to see the exceptionally big walls that protected the village from its enemies. However, just as he was about to make a run for it, a voice appeared out of nowhere, thus alerting Mizuki immediately. "Big scroll you have there, Mizuki-sensei, might if I take a look?" Although the foliage allowed him cover from a ninja's vision, the one with the voice didn't even care about the fact that it was night right now, as his chakra technique managed to see the enemy easily. Mizuki, though, frowned in dismay as he could only see the man's shadow, but the voice was rather familiar, until the person appeared. "I thought that scroll was supposed to remain under the Hokage's care. I wonder what you're doing with it." As soon as Naruto showed up, Mizuki relaxed somewhat and smirked at the chance of finally getting rid of the demon. "Oh, Naruto-kun, I wasn't expecting company this late at night and I was about to leave, but seeing as you're here, I might as well get rid of you. I can't have you telling the others about me, can I?" It wasn't much of a surprise when Naruto just stood there as if he was bored out of his mind. Mizuki never hid his feelings for the demon brat, even though he never voiced those words out loud. Naruto, for his part, was eyeing his options at the moment. Stronger he may be for a genin, but against a chunin, the blonde at least thought he could hold the man's attention until the cavalry arrived. "It just so happened that I was taking a ride throughout the rooftops and saw you with the scroll running away at a considerably high pace," Naruto mused. Mizuki grinned for a while, before he grabbed 4 shurikens and threw at Naruto. The noise made by the projectiles allowed the blonde to pinpoint the projectile's trajectory as well as Mizuki's location, before he evaded to the right and threw 2 kunais at Mizuki, without even falling on the ground, surprising the Chunin. Mizuki parried the kunais with his own, before charging Naruto at taijutsu with a flying kick towards Naruto's chest. However, the air shift was too high and the blind kid was able to dodge the incoming attack, before the Chunin attacked the blonde once more, with punches and kicks, making Naruto's life a lot harder since Mizuki was aiming for the kill. The blonde learned how to properly counter the taijutsu blows by his sensei at the time, and he knew that the images he saw would actually be visible 1/4 of a second later than the actual image, meaning that the blonde had to be one step ahead of his enemy at all times. Getting in position with the Shuriken, the blonde managed to dodge an incoming kick to his sternum as he, then, aimed a punch at Mizuki's chest, only for the Chunin to dodge effortlessly, before landing a strong kick on the blonde's abdomen, sending him flying for a while, before he flipped his body and landed on his feet. Mizuki took the time to take one of the windmill shuriken on his back, before he threw it at Naruto with great speed. However, the Chunin soon learned that projectiles were useless against the blonde, seeing that just from the sound made, Naruto could dodge without even worrying about it. Quickly after dodging, Naruto made some quick hand signs before slamming his hands on the ground. Maiden Jongu, Dark Release. Black Tendrils Jutsu. Mizuki saw the hand seals and frowned at the blonde's strategy. No Academy Jutsu would give him an advantage at Mizuki, so the man stood there waiting for what Naruto would come up with. He was shocked when something came out of the ground and grabbed his arms and legs, before squeezing it hard. "What did you do to me, you brat?" "Ah." Naruto confessed that such a scream was appealing as he approached Mizuki with a smile on his face. "That's my technique you liked. This tendrils that are now holding you are special. The more hatred you have for me, the more the tendrils will squeeze, until blood starts coming out. If you want to get out of this, then you'll have to avoid directing ill intentions at me." Naruto adored explaining such a thing, because deep down, he knew that whatever negative emotions just don't vanish like that, thus the technique would continue to squeeze the man's limbs, until he lost all of his blood. Mizuki, for instance, tried snarling at the blonde, but like the kid said, it was worse. Suddenly, though, Naruto ran through some hand seals one more time as he molded his chakra towards Mizuki, thus disrupting the flow of chakra. Gen Maiden Ankoku Akumu, Dark Illusion. Darkness Nightmare Jutsu. Instantly, Mizuki's world went blank and he couldn't see a damn thing. What is this? Where did the brat go? Mizuki was starting to feel a great measure of pain as the tendrils continued to squeeze his skin, but what would happen next would be enough for the man to wish he was killed by the tendrils. A certain sound of snarling came from the darkness and Mizuki suddenly felt a shiver up his spine. Suddenly, a drop of saliva fell on his head before the image suddenly appeared right in front of him, before he began to scream in agony at such a presence. There it was in all its power, the Kyuubi no Kitsune snarling at him as its tails would dance with each other. "You stink of fear, pitiful ape, and now you'll die by my hands." The sheer fright that Mizuki felt right now was surreal. The Kyuubi no Yoko, the demon who terrorized the village 12 years ago, was released once more and would certainly level the village once more. He was screaming so much as the fox opened its mouth to devour him entirely, that eventually, his brain exploded just by the sheer presence of such a menace. In no time at all, Mizuki was dead as the illusion was disrupted and the tendrils went back to the ground. Mizuki fell together with the scroll as suddenly, 4 Anbus approached the place. They witnessed everything and certainly all of them wondered what genjutsu the blonde used to cause Mizuki to scream in fright so much. The blonde, though, was already moving out, confident that the Anbu would take the scroll back to the safe hands of the Hokage. Little did he know, though, that his grandfather watched the entire thing from his crystal book with a heavy heart, despite the fact that Naruto just stopped Mizuki from leaving the village with the scroll. Yuuhi Kurenai was considered one of the most popular kunoichi in Konoha, both because of her unparalleled beauty and also for her skills in the illusions department. The woman was recently promoted to Junin and she couldn't wait to take on a team of genins to whom she could mold their skills and help them in achieving impressive goals and accomplishments in the near future. That's what she was thinking last night upon arriving at the Hokage's office for the genin team's assembly. Once there, the Hokage would position 3 genins under a respective Junin sensei who would better aid the young shinobi in how to hone their skills. She knew what her future team would specialize in, and that was tracking and investigation missions. Therefore, she knew that whoever was in her team must possess skills related to the missions they would be performing as a team, like espionage and information gathering. As the gorgeous brunette arrived inside the Hokage's office, she saw a few Junin, including one Sarutobi Asuma and Hitaki Kakashi. When the Hokage initiated the meeting, he began with a small summary of the students that graduated that year. Of course, she knew all of them from reading their files just hours ago. She specialized in information gathering mission after all, so it felt like her responsibility to learn and understand all the future Genin's abilities. As the Hokage finished his report, Kurenai was already calling on 3 genins that would fit perfect in her opinion. Aburame Shino was a part of the clan famous for its Kikai bugs. The Aburame clan was famous for information gathering as well as espionage mission, as their insects are able to withhold information and relay it to the user. Plus the fact that no enemy would be aware of the bug's presence, meaning Shino had an extreme advantage in gathering information. Hyuga Hinata, although extremely shy and lacking the necessary confidence of a proud kunoichi, had the Byakugan. One of Konoha's famous dujutsu, it allowed one to expand their vision through miles and miles of land. Also, it had 360-degree vision that would alert her of any enemies in the vicinity. Last but not least, one Inuzuka Kiba, as his family happened to possess an incredibly sensitive nose, making them able to pick up even the faintest scents just like a nin dog. All 3 of them would be valuable to her line of missions and no doubt would turn a heavy A-ranked espionage mission into nothing more than AC rank, just by using the Byakugan and the Kikai bugs. The rest of the genins were just that. The rest in her opinion. No doubt, in her mind, Kakashi would get a heavy assault team and Asuma would get the next generation of the Inoshika Cho team. There was just one genin that Kurenai was thinking, though, as she was letting the biased rumors cloud her judgment. Sarutobi Naruto was the name, and while she was aware of the last name, she was also aware of the rumor that the boy behaved just like the monster trapped inside his stomach close to 12 years ago. The huge number of complaints made by the citizens and even some shinobi, while highly discredited by both the Hokage and the Anbu, were enough for Kurenai to exercise caution around the boy, if ever she encountered him. It was when the Hokage nominated the teams that Kurenai felt like verbalizing her protest immediately. Granted, she had 2 of the genins she so wished for, but Inuzuka Kiba would be, in the Hokage's opinion, better suited as part of a full assault team under Kakashi's guidance along with Uchiha Sasuke. The worst part was that the Hokage passed Sarutobi Naruto to her team for reasons she didn't fully understand. From what she knew, Naruto was a ninjutsu specialist with considerable taijutsu skills and a few genjutsu skills, but otherwise was not suitable for the type of missions the team would be undertaking. Nevertheless, the Hokage was already convinced with the nominations and wouldn't hear a word of Kurenai's protests. In fact, Hiruzen was surprised Kurenai was against having his grandson Naruto on her team, but he figured it was the village's majority opinion that Sarutobi Naruto was to be treated as nothing more than a demon walking through the village streets. He couldn't do anything, and certainly he wouldn't waste his time convincing Kurenai like he did with Iruka. Certainly, Kurenai was a professional kunoichi and wouldn't judge Naruto, or so he hoped. Current timeline. Today, as Kurenai passed through the academy hallways, she was thinking about the current situation she was in and wondering how much of a hassle Naruto could be. Certainly the number of reports indicated that the blonde managed to pick up fights wherever he went, and Kurenai couldn't have loose cannons under her guidance. He would get his team killed by either charging an enemy while hot-headed or revealing their hidden location, by accident. However, when the woman was seconds away from opening the classroom door, a voice called to her as she turned only to see Asuma coming with his hands inside his pockets and his light-up cigarette. "Asuma, it's nice to see you're not late like Kakashi. What can I do for you? I was about to go inside to meet my team." The Sarutobi Junin smiled at the compliment as he stopped in front of the gorgeous woman in order to tell her something rather important. "Kurenai, before you take on your team, I wanted to say a couple things about my nephew Naruto." The sudden topic surprised the genjutsu user as she didn't know that Naruto was Asuma's nephew, nevertheless she let the man start the explanation. "I presume you saw the number of complaints about his behavior throughout the village, but I just ask that you pay very little attention to them, if possible. As an information gathering specialist, she knew better than to make quick assumptions based on reports, but in Naruto's case, certainly it wouldn't be strange hearing about his lack of behavior, considering that he housed the most powerful Biju inside his body. Also, the fact that Asuma was the boy's family, it was possible that such a pledge came out of concern for the boy, rather than from plausible facts alone. Why must I pay little attention to them exactly? Asked Kurenai, surprising Asuma, as she continued. Certainly, I would question reports coming from citizens only, but several shinobi pressed charges as well, and this can't be overlooked. Asuma. You doubt the Hokage's position as well as the Anbu. Because if my memory doesn't fail me, all the reports indicated self-defense from Naruto's position. Asuma tried to reason with the Ice Queen, but her stoic demeanor proved that she wouldn't be convinced, so Asuma dropped the issue. Just do me a favor and reserve your judgment after you meet him, it's all I ask. Asuma said, before he opened the door, gathering the entire room's attention. Kurenai soon joined him inside and each called to their respective genin teams. Team 10, you're with me, meet me in Konoha's barbecue restaurant in 20 minutes. Team 8, I'll be your Junin sensei. Meet me at training ground number 8 in half an hour. With that, the genin got up from their chairs as Shikamaru mumbled some incoherent words which only Naruto managed to hear, before he snickered at the pineapple-haired genin's antics. Nevertheless, the sudden knowledge of getting Kurenai as his sensei intrigued the blonde Sarutobi. Naruto always had the notion that his skills would be better suited for the battlefront, with both his ninjutsu skills and taijutsu. Granted that Kurenai could improve his skills in the illusionary department, but certainly a Junin with more resolve around the ninjutsu department would better suffice. A few minutes later, the entire team arrived at the designated spot Kurenai indicated. Right now, Kurenai was quiet, studying the new set of charges in front of her, while the genin were satisfied with waiting what their sensei had to say. Naruto, though, chose to study his teammates more thoroughly, since he would spend quite some time now. Shino was a subtle man, steady heartbeat and careful enough not to show subtle movements to whatever intention he may have at the moment, but Naruto could very well ascertain his current thoughts. The Aburame was wary of him, that much was obvious. The peculiar noise of bugs swarming inside his body didn't escape the blonde's sensitive ears, as Shino's bugs were wary of Naruto's presence. One thing that Naruto learned from his grandfather was that an Aburame has a common link with their Kikaichu bugs. So, if the bugs acted strange around someone, then it serves as an alert to the clan member. Changing his focus, he began analyzing the all-too-shy Hyuga Hinata. Hinata bugged Naruto a bit, because of her eccentric behavior around others. Hiruzen never stopped mentioning that the Hyuga clan is a proud clan that sometimes tends to place themselves above all others, and for Hinata, daughter of the clan head Hiashi, to behave like this was interesting to say the least. However, in the midst of all that shyness, Naruto could feel something else. It resembled fear. Upon further scrutiny, Naruto managed to see her line of sight right now, and it was focusing on his eyes. The realization hit him like a ton of bricks. Of course, the Hyuga clan focuses their shinobi skills on their impressive dujutsu called the Byakugan. Now, it's easy to know what scares a Hyuga more than anything. It's the thought of never depending on their majestic set of eyes. And the way Hinata was looking at Naruto's eyes, then she must be terrified of the very thought of being in his shoes. Besides that, she was an open book just like everyone to whom he met in the past. Suddenly, the Junin sensei decided to address her genin. Okay, first of all, I want to say congratulations for passing the academy test, but whereas you thought you're already genin, I hate to break the news for you three. So, seeing as you'll be with me for quite some time together, why doesn't each one of you introduce yourselves to the group? I'll go first. My name is Yuahi Kurenai and I received the Junin promotion a couple years ago. My likes are reading books and genjutsu techniques. I don't have much dislikes, except for those who act improperly. My dreams are not of your concern, though I have plenty of them. As Kurenai finished introducing herself, she pointed it to Shino, who cleared his throat. My name is Aburame Shino and my clan techniques favor the use of my Kikaichu bugs. I like to be with my family and friends and I dislike those who mistreat bugs. My dream is to surpass my father and become clan head. Nodding at the introduction, Kurenai turned to the shy Hyuga as Hinata begun talking while stuttering. Anyo. My name is Hyuga Hinata and my likes a re being wi with my little sister. My dislikes a re those who mistreat others based on mere differences and my doctor dream is for my fa father to be proud of my skills as a kunoichi. Shino was okay, but Hinata had some major confidence issues in both Kurenai and Naruto's position. Kurenai knew about Hyuga Hiyashi's poor treatment of the girl and no matter how Hinata improved, the man always treated her accomplishments as unimportant. Easily enough, she would have to focus more on Hinata. Remembering that one genin had yet to introduce himself, she turned to Naruto and ushered him to speak. Sarutobi Naruto is the name and my likes are being with my family. I hate with a passion those who can't put the past behind them and attack me with no reason. My dreams, well, when I have one, you'll be the first one to know. After he closed his mouth, he could feel 3 set of eyes all focused on him like he was a wolf disguised as a sheep. Also, his sensitive ears managed to ascertain a sudden increase in heartbeat coming from his sensei, which meant that something happened to her in the past that probably was the fox's fault. Kurenai, for her part, glared daggers at the blonde for what he said. Like the majority of the population, she too lost important people in her life because of the fox's rampage 12 years ago. And while she was the very few who knew the difference between the Biju and the Jinchuriki, she was still angry with Naruto for what he said. Surely, a person of his position had to at least show some respect for those who sacrificed their lives so that the Yondaime Hokage could imprison the beast. Naruto, for his part, smiled as the sudden feeling of anger served as fuel for his chakra. His tainted chakra happened to be a catalyst for negative emotions, such as the one Kurenai was directing at him. So, deciding to increase said feeling, Naruto pushed his sensei. Kurenai-sensei, although I'm blind, I can very well feel that you're directing waves of anger at my direction. I just wondered what I did to deserve such infatuation. At this, she clenched her muscles at such apparently innocent question. For all her might, she wanted nothing more than explain to Naruto and the now confused genin, the source of her anger, but the issue behind the Kyuubi was a sensitive one and revealing it to the younger population was to be considered a high-level offense, sentenced by death. So, she took a moment to control her breathings and managed to cool off her urges. Nevertheless, she now knew that Naruto needed to be watched. Okay, now that the introductions are over, there is still another issue that needs taking care of. Even though you graduated, as of now, none of you are considered genin. There is still a test in order for you to be called genin and I'll be the one giving it to you 3. The information, while surprising to the group, wasn't totally unexpected as all 3 of them had sharp minds relating the way the shinobi world works. Kurenai hoped this would scare them, but she knew better. Of course, all clan heirs had enough knowledge drilled by their fathers about the ninja world. Out of the graduates, we need to see which ones have the necessary skills to survive out there, not only to prevent unnecessary deaths, but also to fully test if your initiation training are complete. Now, the test I'll be giving you is quite simple in theory, but as you proceed through it, you'll realize it will get harder. The objective is simple. Do you see this picture I'm holding in my right hand? Certainly, she knew Naruto to be blind, much to the blonde's snort. However, he wouldn't dwell on it, as his chakra no Myaku technique managed to show the image to his brain. It was a large scroll wrapped with a red tape and a kanji inscription in the middle. The word was the village's name. After a few minutes of looking, Kurenai kept the picture inside her clothes and crossed her arms as she relayed the mission the genin were about to undertake. As you can see, training ground number 8 is surrounded by heavy foliage and deep lakes and the scroll I just showed you happens to be hidden somewhere around here. Your job is to find the scroll before this timer rings. I'll give you 3 a total of 4 hours to complete. Oh, and always watch your surroundings and protect your teammates. I won't just stand here and let you 3 find the scroll, so I placed traps around the vicinity. Also, from time to time, I will cast genjutsus on each of you 3. Kurenai's firm posture told the genin that she wasn't screwing around with this test and Naruto was beginning to like this person already. Just as Kurenai authorized the team to begin, she vanished within a swirl of leaves, leaving the team alone. The first problem encountered was that not one of them talked first for a while, meaning that so far, this team had little interaction. It took some time, but Shino started talking. Okay, it's safe to say we don't know each other all that well, but logic says we should complete the objective before the timer rings. I happen to know about Hinata's skills, but I don't know yours, Naruto. Naruto nodded at Shino, though the Aburame needn't worry about his skills at the moment, rather the mission at hand. You don't need to know Shino, at least not for now. You two can use your skills in order to search for the scroll. I'll be the one protecting you two. With the Byakugan and your Kikaichu bugs, it won't take long to find the scroll's position in the vicinity, and I guess Kurenai-sensei will attack us with either weapons or genjutsu techniques to confuse us. This is where I'll come in to protect you both. Just watch out for the traps as well. At this entire time, Hinata was looking at Naruto and wondering the entire time how could he live without the use of his eyes function. Add to the foul chakra she could sense coming from the blonde, and the evil aura was enough to frighten her a little bit. However, just like Shino said, what was important right now was the mission at hand, not what she was thinking about the blonde right now. Shino, for his part, concurred with Naruto's plan as he and Hinata activated their respective clan abilities. Hinata's Byakugan was an amazing skill and allowed her peripheral vision around them. Also, by looking at a certain direction, she could elongate her line of sight to miles and miles, hence why Hinata had already managed to locate the scroll's position. Problem was that where she found one, by expanding her sight, she could see 10 others in different directions, which surprised her as her team progressed throughout the heavy foliage. Anyo, there is more than one scroll out there. Hinata said, alerting both Shino and Naruto as they jumped through the trees in perfect unit mobility. It's certain that only one of them is real and the others are bunchins. Do they all look the same, Hinata? Shino asked, before seeing the Hyuga nod. He looked at Naruto to see him making a series of hand seals, before molding that foul chakra both Shino and Hinata sensed before. Maiden Taiju Gaikatsu Bunshin, Dark Release, Multiple Skeleton Bunshin Jutsu. Before they realized what was happening, a great number of bones appeared from the ground. It was like they were watching a horror movie. Shino, though, remained collected, but Hinata was already shaking in fear of such an atrocity. Afterwards, the bones suddenly united themselves, forming a great number of skeletons as they appeared next to Naruto. The strangest thing, to them, was that they looked just like him except for the skin and Naruto's clothes, but otherwise they had the same measures. The real Naruto smirked at his teammates' reactions as well as the fact that he heard someone flinch somewhere, probably Kurenai from witnessing the skeleton bunchins. Don't worry about them. They are my technique, called skeleton bunchins. I'll explain afterwards if any of you are interested to hear. Now, each of these bunchins will travel to the scroll's locations. So, tell me their direction. Naruto said, as the nervous Hinata described their directions, before seeing a bunch of skeletons traveling throughout the foliage. It wasn't long before all 10 of them got dispatched. Soon only the 3 remained. As they were about to move, the sudden sound of projectiles coming their way entered Naruto's sensitive ears, to which he grabbed a few shurikens and threw them, alerting Shino and Hinata, causing them to question why Naruto would do that out of nowhere. However, they soon heard the sound of metal colliding against metal, which meant that Kurenai must have planted a trap nearby. With the projectiles being taken care of, the group charged once more as Hinata and Shino were using their skills to find the scroll, while Naruto was searching for Kurenai's position as well as any hidden traps. Suddenly, the image presented by his technique began to disrupt momentarily, showing a different view all of a sudden. Whereas before Naruto was seeing the huge trees in front of them, now he saw a green field with a lake in front of him. However, quite to Kurenai's surprise, the blonde's path didn't deteriorate as he continued to travel through the foliage as if he wasn't trapped in her altering image genjutsu. Little to her knowledge, though, Naruto wasn't only guided by images sent to his brain. He managed to travel by scent as well as the air around him. However, the blonde didn't want to play any longer as he expanded his chakra no Myaku technique further, disrupting Kurenai's chakra immediately as the forest image came back to him. By now, Kurenai's position was clear in his mind, though he decided to play along since she was aiming for the other 2 now. Naruto saw both Shino and Hinata immediately dispel the techniques as their skills helped them detect a sudden chakra intrusion only seconds after it started. Out of nowhere, Hinata stopped the group as they landed on the ground behind a thick tree. What is it, Hinata? Asked Shino as he gathered his bugs to form a circle around the group just in case Kurenai attacked them while they were talking. Naruto-san's bunchins are already reached the scroll's position. Though all of them are bunchins, just like you said, Shino. Right. We need to hurry. Time is almost up. Hinata, expand your vision using Naruto's bunchins as location pointers. Look for a scroll that none of them managed to find. If they are in fact bunchins, then the real one must be near the clones. Advised Shino, earning a nod from Hinata. Naruto was impressed with Shino's assessment. Indeed, the respect he felt for the Aburame raised a few points. As Hinata was about to pinpoint the scroll's location, a huge barrage of kunai suddenly attacked the team, surprising all three of them. However, both Shino and Naruto were faster as each of them used defensive techniques to protect themselves. Maiden Kurosekisho, Dark Release. Dark Barrier Jutsu. Mushi Cabe no Jutsu, Insect Wall Jutsu. Suddenly, the bugs started to form a protective barrier around the group, deflecting some kunai but not all of them. The rest were taken care of by a dark shield that emerged from the ground. Both Shino and Naruto turned to Hinata in order for her to pinpoint the exact location of the scroll so that they could get it. With the defensive jutsus, she had enough time to examine the terrain for the scrolls that Naruto's bunchins managed to find and another one close behind. It took a minute, but she was able to find it a few meters behind the farthest scroll bunchin. As Shino's bug stopped the last of the kunai, the group charged fast to the real scroll's position until Shino grabbed it just as the timer started to ring. Naruto could hear a distant sound of clapping approaching the group, before their sensei appeared behind a thick tree congratulating the team. Well done, all three of you. During the test, I managed to assess your skills relating teamwork, genjutsu dispelling, and ninjutsu techniques. Although some of them are still creeping the hell out of me as of this moment, you three are genins under my command. We are Team 8 and it is my dream to see you three advance through the ranks. Kurenai praised the three, before dismissing them for the day. All of you are dismissed, except you, Naruto. I wish to talk with you for a moment. The blonde nodded, before seeing Shino and Hinata leaving the thick forest towards their respective clan compounds. Naruto, for his part, found a thick log lying on the ground where he took a sit and faced the ground for a moment, waiting for what Kurenai wanted to say to him. The woman, for her part, was now conflicted regarding her thoughts of the blonde. Throughout this test, Naruto managed to protect his team, where she thought he wouldn't give a rat's to their well-being. He was the one who came with the group's defensive line, allowing both Shino and Hinata to concentrate on finding the scroll. Suddenly, memories of Asuma pleading for her to reserve judgment appeared in her mind and she had the decency to smile at Naruto. Still, another memory assaulted her mind, regarding his lack of respect for those who sacrificed their lives for the Kyuubi's defeat. Right now, her head was in turmoil regarding the previous events and the empty opinion of a delinquent that did nothing but cause trouble everywhere he went. Naruto, Kurenai said, but the blonde interrupted her before she could even begin. It seems now you're more relaxed, your heartbeat that is, said Naruto, surprising Kurenai as she looked at him with an intrigued demeanor. She knew that blind people tend to possess improvement in other senses such as hearing and smell. But to know he could hear the sound of a beating heart from such a distance was incredible. Naruto, I wanted to ask you something and please be honest with me. What did you mean when you said you hated those who couldn't put their past away? I know you meant the Kyuubi inside of you, I'm just curious as to your lack of respect towards those who passed away. The question was indeed intriguing to the blonde, since Kurenai could very well get her answer from the numerous reports filed against him. Suddenly, realization was upon him instantly. She gave little mind to the reports and their content, rather drawing wrong conclusions about his demeanor. Kurenai-sensei, ever since I could remember, people kept attacking me just because I happened to house the very source of their misery 12 years ago. They all believe it would be justified to kill me because in their pathetic way of thinking, I'm the beast reincarnated. Sarutobi Ojichin explained to me that the reason behind all the attacks was that people find it hard to let go of their past and instead use me as a scapegoat. To them, it's easier to vent their frustrations on the demon child instead of learning to cope with the past. Kurenai listened as images of her loved ones dying invaded her mind and the constant times she felt like seeking vengeance for their deaths on Naruto. Those reports against me were all from people who attacked me first from the belief that by killing me, they would rid the world of the fox inside my stomach. In my opinion, though, they are doing this because it's easier than letting go of what happened in the past. I could feel your hatred towards me before Kurenai-sensei, and I saw how much resolve you had in you not to attack me right then and there," said Naruto with a solemn look on his face, even though his lifeless eyes remained the same. To Kurenai, it was hard to see any kind of emotion coming from those eyes, but somehow she could feel the dark aura surrounding the boy, and it saddened her greatly. A sudden tear escaped her eye before it dropped on the ground, however Naruto could hear it loud and clear. He faced Kurenai, before wondering why she was crying, when memories suddenly appeared in his mind regarding the time his mother cried next to him all those years ago. Unknown to the blonde, Kurenai was crying all right, but the reason was because she actually thought that by killing Naruto, her loved ones would be avenged. She now blamed herself for her traumatized mind, which almost ordered her body to charge against the boy without even worrying about the unforeseen consequences of getting her revenge. Kurenai now knew that nothing she did would change what happened to her family. As she cleaned the tears of her eyes, she smiled upon looking up in the sky as the sunlight managed to illuminate the dark forest they were staying in right now. Naruto could feel how his chakra diminished every second, and it was because of Kurenai that he felt like this. It was the same feeling he got upon spending time with his mother and his family as he remembered what his grandfather said a few months ago. When in the presence of light, darkness doesn't know where to hide. Surely, dark's only weakness is light. However, where there is light, there is also darkness. So, darkness will never fully vanish as it happens to balance the human's existence. Seeing that Kurenai was in her own little world right now, Naruto got up from the tree log he was sitting in and left Kurenai alone to look at the sky as he knew her questions were already answered. With Naruto . Seeing that he still had time before he went home for dinner, Naruto chose to go to his most secluded training ground located above the Hokage mountain. It was a place his grandfather showed him when he asked if there was a place no one could disturb him by either mocking his existence or attacking him in hope to avenge their past loved ones. He decided that instead of ninjutsu, taijutsu could do some work. So he summoned some skeleton buncheons to aid him in his taijutsu skills. The good thing about them was that unlike the cage buncheon, a technique he can also do by the way, the skeleton buncheons had more durability, probably because of the bones as they were much more resilient to damage. After two skeleton buncheons materialized from the ground, the real Naruto began charging them with the Sarutobi style of fighting. As he aimed a strong punch against the first buncheon, the clone maneuvered his body around the punch, before jumping and flipping its body to deliver a solid kick to Naruto's chest. The blonde dodged the strike before looking as the other came from behind with another kick. Doing a couple of back flips, Naruto ended his maneuver with a larger back flip, before charging with a flying kick at one of the clones. The problem was that although Naruto managed to land a hit, the clone's bones required a stronger strike to break. However, the clones didn't bother as they attacked the real Naruto without mercy. It was when one tried to attack with a strong punch that Naruto managed to grab the attacker's body, before positioning it in front of him as Naruto used the skeleton in order to flip his body and land a strike at the other clone's skull with a chakra-reinforced blow, thus managing to break the clone's bones. With only one left, Naruto didn't need to worry as much as in a one-to-one fight he didn't have to split his focus. As the clone tried to land a kick on Naruto, the blonde placed his right foot in front of him, before bringing his left foot from all the way back to land a fierce side kick right at the clone's left cheek, considering that he even had a cheek, it's just a location. The kick was too strong and the bone broke. The problem with fighting against bones is that every hit you land must be cushioned with chakra, otherwise you'd break your limbs easily. While it didn't break, Naruto was feeling a lot of pain from his right leg. Nevertheless, he knew that Kyuubi would end up fixing it in a couple minutes. Right now, his focus was on practicing a new technique Kyuubi taught him the other day. Its name is Maiden Kuwaryuden, Dark Release, Black Dragon Projectile Jutsu. The concept of molding chakra, resembling a specific figure, was alien to the blonde. Not because he was blind, but he actually didn't believe it to be possible. Granted, he knew about the existence of some elemental techniques that resembled a dragon charging at an enemy, but dark release techniques were different. It wasn't exactly considered an element. Also, since each mind thinks differently, Naruto joked that no technique would be similar to another. One would mold the technique creating a two-headed fire dragon and the other would create winds coming out of the creature's body. Nevertheless, Naruto guessed he should work with his concept of what a dragon should look like, considering he never saw one. Elongated teeth, menacing slit eyes like a reptile, his concept of a dragon was slowly forming in his mind. A sharp tail and claws that could tear through any sort of defense, plus a solid black reptile skin that would protect the animal from any sort of attack also came to mind. According to Kyuubi, the first step to molding chakra outside the human's body is to think of the creature's structure and details. The fox once said that no human truly understood the power of the brain as just by thinking, one could create any figure the human so desired, adding just chakra to the mix. Focusing his chakra, Naruto started the hand seals that were taught by his fox sensei. Slowly, but surely, his chakra was being molded exactly as Kyuubi said it would be. Curiously, the last hand seal was the dragon as a black vortex took shape near Naruto's shoulder level, before two paws grabbed the end of the black hole. Naruto was still molding his chakra as the technique was only completed once the dragon erupted from the black hole. Suddenly, the head appeared and needless to say, anyone would piss their pants just from the sight. The creature's eyes were dark yellow and its teeth were so big that the creature couldn't fully close its mouth without showing them, just like an alligator. The creature suddenly let out a deafening roar as it echoed throughout the clearing, bringing shivers to anyone who heard it. Slowly, the dragon was coming out of the hole as it managed to free its wings from the tight hole. Naruto's chakra was being consumed by the minute and he wondered how much more he needed before he ran out of it. Finally, the sharp tail came out as the dragon charged against a set of trees right in front of him. The problem was that Naruto didn't have enough chakra to direct the menacing creature's attack, hence why he stopped the chakra molding and the dragon instead changed its course to the sky, before the creature vanished. The blonde was panting on the ground from exhaustion. He didn't know he needed this much chakra for the technique to work. Insolent fool, this technique doesn't require chakra but hatred. Dark chakra techniques don't require quantity, only quality. Unlike other techniques, you need to remember everyone who attacked you because of me. Remember their pain, their hatred, and you won't need chakra. Now, I'll replenish your chakra supply for one more try. Naruto nodded, as he felt his chakra being filled once more. Like his sensei advised, he was remembering every fool who tried to attack him. Their fear, their hatred, the speed in which their hearts were beating from fear of the Kyuubi releasing its rampage once more flowed through his mind. Suddenly, a dark aura surrounded the boy and he smiled before going through the hand seals one more time. As he molded the chakra, both the image of the dragon and the trigger to his dark chakra were clear in his mind as he finished the hand seal sequence. The dark hole appeared once more and this time the dragon didn't take too long to get out of the hole as it roared even louder this time. This time, the entire village fell victim to the creature's killing intent as the dragon charged against the group of trees. It took only seconds for the dragon to obliterate the entire forest with an explosion, quite to the blonde's smirk as he managed to perform a higher level technique. Finally, you realize the true power of darkness. Now, you can expand even your other techniques. You must feel the dark side coursing through your veins. As Naruto heard his mentor, he decided to wrap things up for today and go home. However, the boy stopped once he felt a considerable number of presences reaching his position, forcing a smile on his face as he attracted quite the attention with his technique. 2 hours prior. After Kurenai dismissed her team for the day, she was called by the Hokage for the team's assessment. Right now, all the Junin that were assembled to be senseis were speaking with the Hokage by the time she arrived. To her slight surprise, out of the teams passed at the academy, none of them managed to pass. 3 teams, though, were waiting for Asuma, Kurenai and Kakashi's assessment. Asuma and Kakashi passed their students much to the group's shock, since Kakashi had yet to pass a team for 7 years now. According to him, although Uchiha Sasuke has yet to learn how to work with others, the team managed to work together quite nicely. When it was Kurenai's turn to explain her team's situation, she could feel 3 sets of eyes looking at her, those being Asuma, the Hokage and Kakashi. She knew Naruto to be affiliated to the Sarutobi clan, but why would Kakashi be interested in the boy? Team 8 passed, Hokage-sama, Kurenai said, earning a smile from the 3 as she continued. Shino and Hinata possess natural skills in tracking and infiltration, and Sarutobi Naruto is a natural when the protection of his teammates is involved. He possesses a high level of skills in anticipating attacks and he can adapt to any kind of situation. All in all, this team is perfect for the type of assignments we'll be receiving. Very well, Kurenai-san. Therefore, from all the graduated, only 3 teams managed to pass. Unfortunately, the rest will go back to the academy for another year as they will receive extra lessons in teamwork. Now, out of a sudden, a deafening scream reached the sensitive ears inside the room as a few even started shaking in fear for their lives. Immediately, the Hokage assembled 2 Anbus that were stationed outside his office, before one with the hawk reported the situation. Hokage-sama, we spotted high usage of chakra near the Hokage monument. Possible enemy attack, awaiting orders. Sarutobi Hiruzen paused for a while, in order to assess the situation. Everyone follow me. I have a hunch about the source of this chakra, but I don't want to take any chances, let's go. 1 second later, the entire room was empty as everyone, including the Hokage, the Anbu and the Junin vanished towards the Hokage monument. At the Hokage monument . As the group arrived, all of them saw the menacing black dragon before it leveled the entire forest, gathering quite a lot of dust. Beneath the explosion and the dust, the shadow of a person appeared and quite to the shock of everyone, it was short, most likely a genin by the individual's stature. When the smoke cleared, some of the Junin snarled at the presence of the demon, while the Hokage, Kakashi, Asuma and Kurenai were shocked to see so much hatred leaking from the boy as the dark aura was still enveloping his body. Well, I didn't imagine I would attract this much attention. I kind of overdid it, huh? Everyone just stared at the blonde like he grew a second head, but he wasn't fazed by it. Naruto walked amidst his audience as they weren't even there in the first place, except for a handful. I'll see you at home, Asuma Otuji, Sarutobi Ojichan. Within seconds, Naruto left the vicinity without even worrying about an eventual interrogation. He knew he would be answering them once the Hokage and Asuma arrived home. Kurenai was caught staring at the level of destruction one mere genin could cause and wondered how much stronger Naruto would be upon reaching the Chunin and Junin promotion. Okay. False alarm everyone. Anbu, return to your station. The rest of you are dismissed. Asuma, Kurenai and Kakashi all expect to see your teams tomorrow for their first official missions. I just hope that Naruto maintains his control or I fear your team won't be receiving D-ranked missions, Kurenai-san. Sarutobi Naruto figured that as soon as he graduated and joined a genin team, his ninja skills would catapult as he would get access to skills he couldn't when still an academy student. However, while his team's sensei Kurenai taught the team a lot, bearing from chakra control and genjutsu introduction, Naruto was fairly sure he was going to kill himself if any more D-ranked missions were to be assigned to his team. At first, he was okay with the so-called chores his uncle warned him about, however after mission of babysitting, grocery shopping and dog walking, he was going nuts. Not to mention that damn cat. To many of the village population, Naruto was the demon reincarnated, the bane of existence, but the blonde figured that title was already taken and by a cat no less. Every time he managed to catch the damn animal, it would slip and escape once more, before Shino's bugs managed to grab it and take it straight to its owner. What was worse was that every time his team managed to catch the cat, it didn't take 2 days before he heard that another team was drafted by the Hokage to catch it once more. Well, at least it wasn't his responsibility as he walked aimlessly towards training ground number 8 where he would meet with his team. Thinking of this last couple of months, Naruto could say he improved his relationship with his team. Their teamwork was flawless from the start, seeing as all 3 of them possessed complementary skills, according to Kurenai-sensei. Shino and Hinata didn't look at Naruto with fear anymore, even though Hinata still felt strange by looking straight into Naruto's lifeless eye sockets. Together, they were responsible for over 20 D-ranked missions, quite to the old man Sarutobi's pride as he feared in the beginning that Naruto wouldn't be able to bond with his teammates. However, while he couldn't call Shino and Hinata his friends, certainly they behaved well as a team. As Naruto arrived at the training ground, he greeted Kurenai-sensei and Shino, while waiting for the last member to arrive. Hinata was the last to arrive, before Kurenai started talking. Okay team, the Hokage told me about Team 8's a record of D-ranked missions and he will allow us our first C-ranked mission. The reactions to Kurenai's info were completely random. Shino just raised his eyebrow in surprise while Hinata smiled in pride. The Sarutobi Maiden user smiled as well, but it was different from Hinata's. Everyone knew about Naruto's sick nature regarding enemies, but seeing as he was completely loyal to those loyal to him, they didn't care much. The blonde was considering the fact that his team would participate in tougher missions and may find tough opponents to test his skills against. Kurenai looked at Naruto for a while, before sighing in dismay. Naruto sure could be scary sometimes, but she was already used to his antics. In a way, the boy was like her friend Anko but with a male perspective. Okay. Then, let's go to the Hokage's office and receive the mission, shall we? At the Hokage's office . As soon as the team walked inside, they could see the Hokage's smile towards Naruto. It was common knowledge how much the old Sarutobi cared for his grandson, even if the boy was growing out to be one kick-ass assassin shinobi. But then again, isn't killing a part of a ninja's profession? At least, Hinata and Shino knew this much from their parents and from actually paying attention to the academy's teachings. Team 8 reporting for duty Hokage-sama, reported Kurenai, followed by a nod from the old man Sarutobi as he grabbed a scroll from the C-ranked pile. Team 8, as promised, your team will receive its first C-ranked mission, nothing too dangerous so don't worry. Your team will receive the first information gathering assignment. A couple of days ago, a gang of thieves were reported stealing important shipments from the Fire Country Railroad Company. Your team must gather information or proof regarding whoever is doing this, before apprehending these criminals. A team of Anbu will be waiting for you once you manage to capture them. As the Hokage briefed the team, Naruto was getting interested by the minute, but with his lifeless eyes it was almost impossible to read any kind of emotion. Kurenai-san, these kinds of missions will be your team's expertise in the future, and while it's a simple information gathering assignment, it could turn out to be messy in case the thugs see any one of you and retaliate. Your team is to leave tomorrow at 0800 hours. Dismissed. The team bowed to their cage and left the office with Kurenai saying that the team could have the day off in order to rest for tomorrow's mission. As the team left, Naruto remained behind to discuss something with the Hokage. Sarutobi Hiruzen noted that Naruto didn't leave the office, so it must mean something happened and he wished to discuss it. The man just hoped it wasn't another attack on his grandson's life based on past hatred of the Kyuubi no Yoko. Yes, Naruto-kun, is there something you wish to talk about? Asked Hiruzen, figuring Naruto was just waiting for the question. As a matter of fact there is, but don't worry, it's nothing about another attack so you can relax. Quite frankly, I don't know why you still bother about that stuff. No, actually I was wondering what kind of weapon should I purchase. The question kind of surprised Sarutobi as he knew Naruto to be rather vicious when protecting himself, but he asked nonetheless. Oh, and what would you need a weapon for if I may ask? Naruto figured he could come up with an excuse for having access to dangerous weapons, but he figured it would be pointless to lie to his grandfather and Hokage. I read about different swords there are today and I was interested in learning about the art of kenjutsu. So what type of sword would be better for me? A ninjutsu, a kodashi, perhaps a katana. Sarutobi took a moment to contemplate the situation a bit before giving advice to his grandson. He was a genin now and he had the right to choose which art to focus on. Nevertheless, Sarutobi wanted to reduce the possibility of blood staining the green of Konoha as much as possible, and as such, he knew what to do concerning Naruto's request. He happened to know a friend who was a master at forging different types of swords, and the one he had in mind had a reversed blade. At least this way Naruto wouldn't go out there slicing people. Well, Naruto, considering that you're a ninja and speed is your focus, I'd say a kodashi will work better. However, in order to keep the killing spree to a low minimal, I will suggest you acquire a reversed blade kodashi. At Naruto's bewildered look, Sarutobi explained. You're a ninja now, Naruto-kun, and I know not everyone that attacks you is shinobi. Some of them are civilians, and while I know you don't raise a finger to them, which I thank Kami for, it's not wise to have a cutting weapon nearby. Naruto displayed an amused grin at the Hokage's message to him. Don't worry, Oji-chan. I won't kill everyone, although they very well deserve it in my book. So, a reversed blade kodashi, you know where I can purchase one of those? Old Aikido-san's store has plenty you could choose from. They are a bit expensive though, so you could put on my tab if you so wish, Sarutobi said, but Naruto shook his head before turning his back to his grandfather. It's not a problem, Oji-chan. With the D-ranked mission's income, I have plenty to acquire a reasonable one. See ya, Oji-chan. Naruto said, before a sudden dark aura surrounded the blonde, and the next second he was gone, leaving the old man alone with his thoughts. At night. It took longer than expected to pick a suitable kodashi, Naruto thought as he jumped through rooftops towards his clan's compound. He knew the shop owner didn't have anything against him nor the Kyuubi, so everything transpired without a problem. Old Akito-san showed next to 10 different kodashis, with different handles and colors. Sure, Naruto was blind, and although his chakra no Myaku technique allowed him next to perfect eyesight, it lacked the ability to regard all the vivid colors Mother Nature created. It took a while to pick the one, but in the end Naruto managed to find one. Its handle wrap was dark navy blue, and the blonde felt something upon placing his hand around it for the first time. He mused that this must have been the feeling of every swordsman with his or her weapon. With it, they would feel complete. Without it, nothing would be able to compensate. Slicing the air a bit while inside Akito's shop, Naruto was surprised that the kodashi was quite heavy. Akito explained that the metal used to forge this type of sword was more resilient, thus heavier than the one used for regular blades. Now that he acquired a new sword, it was time to learn how to wield the weapon. Maybe even ask someone or find a suitable scroll for him to study, braille written of course. As Naruto opened the door to his home, he was greeted by his little brother Konohamaru, who came running at Naruto's left leg, before enveloping his tiny arms around it, much to Naruto's chuckle. Very few people managed to get that reaction out of him, as he felt his power diminishing by the warm feeling he was getting from his little brother. The blonde patted Konohamaru on his head, before walking with him towards the kitchen where their mother was preparing dinner for tonight. The woman, for her part, realized both her son's presence and smiled. Hello Naruto-kun, please call everyone, dinner is almost ready. Okay Ka-san. It didn't take long before the entire Sarutobi family sat on the considerably large dinner table as Asuma and Hiruzen started their usually heated discussions regarding the position of the Hokage and the fire daimyo within Fire Country. Politics, Naruto mused as he ate his teppanyaki quietly so not to disturb anyone. There was one thing that the blonde had an addiction for, and it was noodles in general. Every food that had noodles, he enjoyed. Ramen, tsukemen, teppanyaki. He ate everything Makoto placed on his plate, as long as noodles were in as well. It didn't take long for dinner to be over as everyone went to their respective beds, with a final word shared between Hiruzen and Naruto about the important step the boy will be taking tomorrow regarding his first C-rank mission. The Hokage emphasized a lot to Naruto regarding the importance of teamwork out there and that he needed to protect his teammates no matter what the cost. Of course, Naruto knew that as he trained constantly on perfecting his defensive technique to the point that the dark barrier technique took less time to appear, but of course he focused more on his new Gen Maiden, dark illusion, techniques that he created with Kurenai-sensei's help. Next day. As usual, Kurenai was the first one to arrive at her team's designated spot. She liked it this way. It showed that she was a stickler for rules and timing. Her team didn't take more than 10 minutes to arrive, though, as she noticed Naruto and Shino approaching her position pretty much the same time. Kurenai wondered about the beautiful sword strapped on Naruto's back. She thought about questioning him about it, but she thought better. Naruto has a mind of his own when it comes to his skills. She would teach him only the abilities he asks her to. Hinata arrived soon after, and the team headed towards Fire Country's Railroad Corporation in order to meet their client, the company's CEO and chairman Hideki. He'd be the one guiding the team towards the railroad and giving the necessary details. The company building wasn't far from Konoha, taking only 15 to 20 minutes for Team 8 to arrive at the huge glass building in front of them. The Fire Country's Railroad Corporation was one of Fire Country's most important companies, responsible for almost half of the Fire Lord's income by operating trade lines with other countries. Upon entrance, the ninja team saw everyone running like crazy wearing suits. It was a clear pandemonium inside the company, but Kurenai figured that the reason was because of the smuggling that had been going on lately. This company's business should be considered safe for merchants to trade their goods with other countries, and if they lose trust in the company, it wouldn't take long before the place was reduced to bankruptcy. Ah, the team from Konoha, I requested. Fancy meeting you here so soon. I was actually expecting you to take another hour or so. The team turned to meet the speaker. They saw a middle-aged man with gray suit and a pair of dark glasses. Hideki wore a confident smile on his face, while at the same time, ogling Kurenai like a damn pervert. However, she maintained business composure and addressed the client. Hideki-san, I'd like to introduce you to my team, before we begin the mission specs, if it's okay with you. The client nodded, so Kurenai continued. First is Aburame Shino. Next to him is Hyuga Hinata, and the blonde one with green eyes is Sarutobi Naruto. I am Yuhi Kurenai and we are Team 8 at your service. Hideki nodded, although Kurenai could feel that he never took his eyes off her chest area. Naruto, for his part, was focusing his attention on the client and wondered why his heartbeat was so fast. It's my pleasure to be of acquaintance. Now please follow me while I explain what's been happening so far. Our company takes great pride in complete safety of the trade routes. We are responsible for approximately 60% of our daimyo-sama's income, as our line of work involves the facilitation and transportation of many trades involving 2 or even 3 countries. As such, the Fire Country Railroad is the sole logistics company within Fire Country, and people expect nothing but perfection in what we do. However, lately some shipments were robbed, and needless to say, one of our clients wasn't entirely thrilled. The man demanded reparations, and of course, the company gave it to him. The team nodded at the explanation so far, but Hinata called the man's attention. Excuse me, Hideki-san, but why would the company pay for something they didn't cause? As a profitable business, we are responsible for great incomes, but we are also responsible for the losses. The client hands their goods to us, expecting it to be delivered to the right destination. If something happens, it's our responsibility regardless if the goods are stolen or destroyed. It's the company's policy, Hinata-san. Hideki smiled as they doubled a corner where a lot of workers could be seen typing in their laptops like it was the end of the world. Not to mention the fact that it wouldn't be profitable for the company to lose an important client. As Naruto spoke, the man suddenly frowned at the blonde boy, before smiling back at the team. That little one sure knows a thing or two about business. Well, as I was saying, the last couple days, our goods are being stolen and our clients are losing interest in hiring our services. Kurenai nodded as she understood the situation. Say, Hideki-san, we will need information regarding which railroad route the thefts are occurring at and their schedule as well. It's imperative that we begin right away, otherwise the company's mistrust will spread, possibly reaching daimyo-sama's ears. Hideki nodded and gave a briefcase to Kurenai, which contained all the necessary data for Team 8 to initiate their assignment. Right ahead of you, Kurenai-san, in this briefcase there is everything you need to know. The routes where the robbery occurred and the time each train left our station here in Fire Country. Well, I have a meeting with a new client that wants to hire us for an important shipment to Earth Country, better not keep him waiting. I trust that your team, Kurenai-san, can capture these thieves and bring them to justice, otherwise I fear this company will meet its end prematurely. Kurenai nodded as the company's CEO marched towards the tower elevator. Immediately, she turned to Naruto and noticed he kept his attention focused on Hideki, until the elevator door closed. Naruto, is there anything wrong? Something is wrong with the way Hideki acts around us. His heartbeat was fast for someone who needs to remain in control all the time. Don't worry about him for now, let's just stick with the info contained inside this briefcase and establish our strategy. Now, I managed to read a few documents. The thieves are concentrating their aim in one specific route, the one that leads to Water Country. According to this logistics report, the train left the station at 10 o'clock at night, arriving at Water Country's station at 1 in the morning. This train never stops, so the thieves must possess some sort of ninja training to infiltrate a moving vehicle. We'll follow the track route. It shouldn't take long, seeing as the theft occurred inside Fire Country's territory. What makes you so sure it happened inside Fire Country? According to this paper, the route is 100 miles long. Shino was the one who asked, but Kurenai responded. We don't have any authority over thefts occurred in Water Country, so I'm presuming that the thefts occurred inside Fire Country. It's not to say I'm 100% sure, though. Now, here's the plan. Naruto and Hinata will run through the entire route and pinpoint all possible places for the thief to hide or wait for the train. I know that these areas are surrounded by mountains and lakes. Shino and I will get a feel of the company's security personnel. Hideki-san gave me a contact card of the head of security. The team nodded and divided in two pairs with Naruto and Hinata finding the route station, while Shino and Kurenai went to the head of security's office. At night. Once Naruto and Hinata returned, the entire team met inside one of the company's meeting rooms in order to discuss their findings. Kurenai had one considerably sized map of the route in question, as both Naruto and Hinata pinpointed the possible places for abducting the goods. According to Hinata, there were 5 possible places for someone with genin level speed to infiltrate the train and steal the goods inside. Naruto, though, discarded 2 of them, seeing as their location made it impossible for any sane person to jump inside the train and not get killed in the process. Kurenai and Shino nodded, before the Junin focused the team's attention of the 3 places. The head of security wasn't able to provide us with much information. He told that every train has its own group of security guard and not one of them saw the thieves. However, being a genjutsu specialist, I know it's easy to fool them with low-level illusions. So, in other words, the thieves had ninja training and quite possibly, genjutsu skills as well. Tomorrow, we'll head to the places Naruto and Hinata pinpointed and catch these thieves once and for all. The team nodded, before they moved to the company hotel located near the company building to sleep. As soon as they left, Hideki appeared inside the meeting room and smiled a bit, before returning to his office. It was already late and the man doubted anyone was still working. He closed the door to his office and saw a kind of communication device ringing next to his computer. Picking it up and placing it on his right ear, Hideki greeted the caller. Hideki here. I heard Konoha sent a team to investigate the thefts. Are you sure we are okay? The voice was strong, but loaded with fear. It belonged to a strong man but apparently fearful of Hideki as he was calling the shots from afar. No worries, Hideaki-san. With the exception of the hot Junin, the rest are mere children with sharpened toys. Our plan is soundproof, that I assure you. Now, tomorrow another shipment will reach Water Country by midnight. Be sure to steal everything there is inside. This is the last shipment necessary for people to completely mistrust this damn company and take their business elsewhere. The smile was present on the man's face as he heard his subordinate acknowledge the order and cutting the link. The man picked up his jacket and left the office, never once losing the smile on his face. Once the door closed and the lights were off, a shadow suddenly appeared from within a small genjutsu his sensei taught him. Naruto smiled as his guess was proven correct. However, he needed to lure Hideki, because otherwise, the man would escape free and see the company bankrupt with that damn smile on his face. Opening the office window, Naruto jumped down the immense building, before attaching his feet to the structure, safely running towards the ground, before jumping towards a nice set of trees. He headed for the hotel his team was staying at and noticed that Shino was awake inside the room they shared. So what did you find out? Asked the Aburame genin, as Naruto, quietly, walked inside the room. Enough to know who's behind this little scheme, now let's rest. Tomorrow will be a busy day for us, Shino nodded, before both went to sleep. Next day. Seeing that the train wouldn't leave for another 2 hours, Team 8 gathered along with Hideki in order to tell the man their findings so far. On the outside, the man was hearing Kurenai's explanation about the spots where they will hide, but inside he was smiling at the innocence of the girl, telling him everything. It allowed him to better cover his plan, by informing his goons about Konoha's plan. After he left, Naruto reached Kurenai and decided a best course of action. Kurenai-sensei, I believe it's wiser to follow a different strategy here, Naruto suggested with his arms crossed, like he was bored. These spots were chosen by you, Naruto. Why the sudden change of faith? Covering those areas me and Hinata pinpointed as fine and all, but I believe we could cover more ground if we went along with the cargo. Instead of tracking the thieves, let them come to us. Kurenai listened to her subordinate's idea and actually saw merit in it. Though she was wondering about the sudden change of heart, but she went along with it. Naruto may be young and inexperienced, but with his skills, he could detect things no one could and she would capitalize on this. Okay Naruto, we'll do things your way, hopefully we get to catch the villain here. With the train. The train heading to Wave Country left the station at the designated time, and the shinobi from Team 8 quickly tagged along on top of it, while maintaining an invisibility genjutsu. This train happened to carry almost 100 million ryu in goods, and it meant a lot to the company that the client received the cargo. So, in every case inside the train, a tracker bug was located, in order for the team to track the stolen goods. Its speed was impressive, but the team managed to stick their feet to it, because of their impressive chakra control. Half an hour later, Team 8 saw the thieves at one of the places Naruto and Hinata pinpointed. As the train passed, the group of 3 individuals jumped and used chakra to stick to the train, before opening the window and entering inside the convoy where the goods were located. In little time, all the cases were thrown outside the train as the thieves left the place, never once noticing the group on top of the train. Kurenai managed to identify one of the thieves as C-ranked missing nin from Konoha named Hotaru. The man deserted Konoha after failing in killing an important official linked to the Fire Daimyo. Now, he's stealing from the most profitable company located within Fire Country's territory. Shino, where are the goods being taken? The Aburame focused on a single hand sign, starting his communication link with the bugs located inside the cases. A few miles west from our position, Kurenai-sensei. The sensei nodded, before the team jumped from the train as they started running towards the location, while Hinata's Byakugan was attentive to any traps just in case Hotaru knew he would be followed. As they approached the position, the group spotted a wooden cottage in the middle of nowhere. The light was on and everyone could see 4 shadows inside, instead of the 3 that stole the goods, much to everyone but Naruto's surprise. He knew who the 4th shadow belonged to as Kurenai instructed her team for the infiltration. Naruto, you'll be the one to use the technique I taught you. Hinata will be responsible for taking them out. The team nodded, before Naruto and Hinata charged the cottage while unseen by the shadows inside. As the pair stopped in front of the front door, Naruto opened it slightly without making a single sound. Hideki's voice could be heard and Hinata was surprised to hear the man that hired Konoha here of all places, but the smile on Naruto's face told her that somehow he already knew about that. Starting a long series of hand seals, Naruto focused on his dark chakra. Gen Maiden Kokuongyu, Dark Illusion. Journey into Black Darkness Jutsu. Instantly, shouts from inside echoed throughout the clearing as Hinata worked her magic with her Jiyuken, sending 3 guys to unconscious, while Hideki wondered what the hell was going on. Just as the lights appeared once more, the man was surprised to see the hot woman from Konoha looking at him with her arms crossed, and next to her was her 3 little genins. The bodies of his subordinates were on the ground, unconscious, and he knew an excuse was needed right away, but before he could open his mouth, a bunch of bugs surrounded his body as Kurenai opened her mouth. At first, I was wondering what you're doing here, Hideki-san, but then Naruto here related to me how you were the mastermind behind this entire operation. You wanted to frame the company and send it to bankruptcy. Your motive is not yet clear, but that's not our goal here. Our goal was to stop the stealing, and we did just that. Now, you're coming with us to Konoha. The Hokage will deal with you. The look on the man's face was proof enough that he was screwed, all because of a small brat that kept his damn nose in something that wasn't his business in the first place. At Konoha . Once Hideki was delivered to the Anbu team stationed near Konoha, they handed him to the capital's police, who arrested Hideki for his crimes against the company. Hotaru and his crew was captured and killed, seeing as they were criminals, but this was kept from the team who arrested them, since none of them knew the dirty aspects of what their job would entail in the future, but the mission was completed nonetheless. Now, the team stood in front of the Hokage as the old man smirked with satisfaction at the mission well done. Congratulations, Team 8. The mission was carried out with extreme efficiency as is expected from your team, Kurenai-san. I've just read the report, and while it's risky business to investigate Hideki-san, it proved to be the smart thing to do. Sometimes, the client hides information from us and the mission becomes a liability because of it. It's good that your team managed to uncover the truth in time. In the end, the perpetrator was caught and brought to justice. Nice work. The team nodded before leaving the office with their paychecks. They were dismissed for the day, but not before the Hokage threw a scroll in Naruto's direction. He took the scroll totally by reflex, before passing his finger through it. Every time his grandfather gave him something to read, it was written in Braille, and this was not an exception. You wanted to have a sword and you acquired one with the reversed blade. I so happen to know of a style you could learn. It's an ancient one called Hanmadageki, hammer strike, and it suits the weapon you chose. Now, take a read and tell me what you think later on. Naruto nodded and left the office, heading straight home where he would read the scroll all day. Next day. Hatake Kakashi could be called a patient man as he followed behind his team of genin. The three little ones in front of him were certainly skilled for their age, as two of them happened to be the next generation of two of Konoha's clans, Uchiha and Inuzuka. Sasuke was a genius, skilled just like his brother except for the whole killing his clan thing. Kiba was brash, but he had talent in the taijutsu department, as did everyone in his clan. Sakura, the brains of the team, had excellent chakra control and is very adept at genjutsu techniques. However, looking at them, the man couldn't help but remember what a pain it is to be their Junin sensei. Sakura was always pestering Sasuke for dates while the broody child waved her off the entire time. Kiba, at first, was the only normal one, but the problem began when Sasuke started treating the Inuzuka as a rival. Now both of them kept pestering each other for spars. Also, the fact that both of them whined to him about the torture of D-ranked missions pretty much got on his damn nerves. Right now, the team was heading to the Hokage's office as they would hopefully get their first C-ranked mission. At the Hokage's office. Once everyone stopped in front of the Hokage, Kakashi reported the team's presence, earning a smile from the aged Sarutobi, before he grabbed Team 7's next mission. Ah, Team 7, okay, let me see the missions for today. Ah, babysitting Yamanaka Inoichi's niece, shopping groceries for. No, shouted Kiba, gathering the attention of everyone as he complained about the doing those damn chores known as D-ranked missions. Sasuke remained quiet, though his thoughts were similar to the brash Inuzuka. Sakura wanted nothing more than do whatever Sasuke wanted to do, and Kakashi, well, he didn't care one way or another. Sarutobi Hiruzen, for his part, smiled at the little joke he made and remembered to share it with his grandson Konohamaru. Relax, Kiba-kun. I believe it's high time your team started on the C-ranked missions. Please come in, Tazuna-san, Sarutobi called, as an old man with glasses entered the room, while holding a bottle of sake. The strong scent of alcohol was evident as Sakura had to protect her nose from exhaling it. Smiling, Sarutobi continued to explain the details of the mission. Tazuna-san here requested a team to escort him back to his home in Wave Country. This will be Team 7's first C-ranked mission. I hired a team of shinobi, not a gathering of little brats. What protection could they offer to me? Asked Tazuna, much to Kiba and Sasuke's displeasure, but Kakashi convinced the man about this team's skills and the fact that he was a Junin, Tazuna would be safe under his watch. This alone settled Tazuna's mind as he left the office with the condition that he went to the West Gate tomorrow morning. Now that the client was out, Sarutobi started addressing the team in front of him. Now Kakashi, I wanted to discuss some important things to the team about this mission. Yesterday, Team 8 got their first C-ranked mission and something happened that could happen to everyone. Don't worry, the mission ended as a success and no one died. The problem was that it was discovered that the very client withheld information from us, almost costing us dearly. Because of this, I've been running some analysis on Tazuna's claim in Wave Country. Sarutobi had their full attention as he continued the explanation. According to Tazuna, the only ones after him are bandits and thugs. However, I have reason to believe said information to be false, hence why another team will tag along on this mission. Before Kiba could protest, Sarutobi proceeded with the explanation. Sometimes, Kiba-kun, one little misinformation could cost lives, and it's my job to protect my shinobi with the best of my ability. So, placing 2 Junins and 3 more Genins, this mission has less chance of failing and possibly less chance of any casualties. Plus, Team 8 is trained to investigate clues not easily detected, so if the client is lying, we'll be better prepared for anything. Kakashi, do you have anything to add? Nothing, Hokage-sama, I guess. Do you need me to call Kurenai-san's team and tell them? Please do, my friend. Team 7 dismissed. Next day. Sasuke and Kiba arrived at the gate pretty much the same time, both wanting to beat the other in arriving at the gate. However, Naruto and Shino were already there as the two shared a conversation about something. Upon looking at the blonde, Sasuke shivered. Just like Hinata, Sasuke's clan focused exclusively on their Dujutsu, the Sharingan. He couldn't imagine how his life would be if he lost his eyes. Without it, he couldn't use the only weapon he was counting on against his brother, and so, he wouldn't be able to fulfill his revenge. It wasn't to say he considered Sarutobi Naruto an equal. He still has his family, after all. Naruto, for his part, sensed Sasuke and Kiba's approach, but continued the conversation with Shino. One aspect of Naruto's academy program was the lack of any friends or even colleagues. No one approached him and vice versa. Of course, there were some like Kiba who tried bullying Naruto once, just once. Just by remembering the little Inuzuka whining like a little puppy because of his chakra sonar technique pretty much sufficed for the entire academy. In no time, Kurenai, Hinata and Kakashi arrived along with Tazuna, starting the mission escort to Wave Country.